Breaking right now. The war between the United States, Israel, and Iran has now entered its second week with no signs of slowing down. And the story that broke overnight changes everything about how this conflict could end, not just for Iran, but for the United States, for Europe, and for every country in between. Russia is feeding Iran intelligence to kill American troops. That is not speculation. That is a confirmed report from the Washington Post, CNN, and multiple U.S. officials. And it means this war just stopped being a two-way fight. We are on day 8. Let me take you through everything. Start with what Trump said, because the President of the United States went on Truth Social Friday and posted something that removed every off-ramp from this conflict in a single sentence. Trump wrote, "There will be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender." He did not stop there. He said that once Iran surrendered, and after the selection of a great and acceptable leader, the U.S. and its allies would work to rebuild the country and make it prosperous. He ended the post, "Iran will have a great future. Make Iran great again, MIGA." That post set the tone for day 8. No ceasefire, no negotiation, no deal of any kind unless Iran lays down completely. When Axios asked Trump what he actually meant by unconditional surrender, he clarified that it may not require a formal declaration from Tehran. He said unconditional surrender could be that they announce it, but it could also be when they can't fight any longer because they don't have anyone or anything to fight with. Think about what that second option means. Trump is not just asking Iran to sign a document. He is describing the military destruction of Iran's entire capacity to wage war as an acceptable definition of surrender. That is not a negotiating position. That is a war objective. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said when Trump determines Iran no longer poses a threat to the United States and the goals of Operation Epic Fury have been met, Iran will effectively be in a state of unconditional surrender. She said the U.S. expects the war to go on for approximately 4 to 6 more weeks. And Iran's response to all of this? Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said the U.S. demand for unconditional surrender is a dream that they should take to their grave. Pezeshkian said Iran will never capitulate. Iran's foreign minister said the country is fully prepared for the possibility of a U.S. ground invasion. 2 leaders, 2 completely incompatible positions, and bombs still falling on both sides. Now, the story that changes the entire architecture of this war. Russia is providing Iran with targeting information to attack American forces in the Middle East, the first indication that another major U.S. adversary has become indirectly involved in the conflict. 3 officials familiar with the intelligence confirmed Moscow had passed Tehran information on U.S. military assets since the start of the conflict. One official told the Washington Post, "It does seem like it's a pretty comprehensive effort. The intelligence Iran has received covers naval vessels, military bases, and the locations of other American assets, and it has largely been delivered using Russia's massive space-based surveillance apparatus. Here is why this matters so much. Iran does not have a sophisticated satellite network of its own. It cannot independently track the movements of U.S. aircraft carriers, fighter jets, and radar systems in real time. Russia can. Russia has refined many of these targeting methods during its war against Ukraine, where drones, satellite imagery, and electronic intelligence are widely used to locate positions. That same infrastructure is now being pointed at American troops." It is not yet clear whether any single Iranian attack can be directly linked to Russian targeting intelligence. But several Iranian drones have hit locations where U.S. troops were present in recent days. An Iranian drone struck a makeshift facility housing U.S. troops in Kuwait on Sunday, killing 6 American service members. One intelligence source told CNN, "This shows Russia still likes Iran very much." When reporters asked Trump about this Friday, the president dismissed the question entirely, saying it was a stupid question to be asking at this time. That deflection is its own answer. The United States is currently at war in the Middle East, and Russia, a country Trump has spent years trying to build a working relationship with, is actively helping the enemy kill American soldiers. And Trump does not want to talk about it. U.S. intelligence also reportedly suggests that China may be preparing to provide Iran with financial assistance, spare parts, and missile components, with Beijing worried about its access to Iranian oil that it heavily relies on. Russia on one side, China considering entry on the other. This war started 8 days ago as a U.S.-Israel operation against one country. It is now pulling in every major power on earth. Let us talk about what is actually happening on the ground, because the scale of these strikes has reached a new level. The U.S. military's Central Command says it has struck more than 3,000 targets in Iran and destroyed 43 Iranian warships since February 28th. The Israeli military claims to have achieved near-complete air superiority, stating it has carried out 2,500 strikes and destroyed 80% of Iran's air defense systems. Trump warned on Saturday morning that Iran will be hit very hard today, with new areas of the country under consideration for what he described as complete destruction and certain death. And Tehran's airport Mehrabad, one of the two main civilian airports in the Iranian capital, is now on fire. Video circulating on social media and confirmed by CNN showed Tehran's Mehrabad airport burning following overnight strikes. Iran's state broadcaster reported explosions in both the eastern and western parts of the capital. The U.S. has warned of a forthcoming bombing campaign that officials said would be the most intense yet in the week-long conflict, which has already killed at least 1,332 people. Of the more than 1,300 people killed in strikes on Iran so far, at least 181 are children, according to UNICEF. That UNICEF figure is not from Iranian state media. That is from the United Nations Children's Agency. 181 children dead in 8 days. It also looks increasingly likely that a U.S. munition was responsible for the strike on a school in Iran, a U.S. official, and another person familiar with preliminary findings of the U.S. investigation confirmed. Scores of children were killed in the strike. This is the dimension of this war that markets, geopolitical analysts, and diplomatic circles are beginning to focus on in ways they were not on day one. The military campaign is succeeding by its own metrics. The human cost is becoming impossible to ignore. Iran has not stopped fighting, not even close. A military source told Iran's Fars news agency that since February 28th, Iran has fired over 500 ballistic and naval missiles and nearly 2,000 drones. About 40% of those launches targeted Israel. The remaining 60% were aimed at U.S. targets across the region. The U.S. says Iran's ballistic missile attacks have fallen by 90% since the first day of the conflict, while drone attacks have dropped by 83% over the same period. The U.S. and Israeli narrative is that this represents Iran running out of ammunition. Iran's narrative is that it is rationing for a longer war. The Gulf states are now in the middle of something they never asked to be part of. Kuwait's armed forces downed 12 Iranian drones and 14 missiles on Friday alone. The UAE intercepted 9 ballistic missiles and 109 drones on Friday, its defense ministry said, adding that its forces remain on high alert. Bahrain's defense force said it has intercepted 84 missiles and 147 drones targeting the kingdom since the war started. Saudi Arabia intercepted 16 drones heading toward one of the largest oil fields in the Middle East, the Sheba field, which produces 1 million barrels per day. Read that again. Iran targeted the Sheba oil field, a field producing 1 million barrels of oil every single day. If that field is damaged or shut down, the oil crisis that is already developing becomes something of an entirely different magnitude. And earlier this week, there were explosions in Bahrain and Abu Dhabi late Saturday local time, despite Iran's president having suggested earlier in the day that attacks across the Gulf would cease. Iran's Revolutionary Guard clarified they will stop targeting neighboring countries. They will not stop targeting U.S. and Israeli military positions in the region. The distinction matters because most U.S. troops in the Gulf are on bases inside those neighboring countries. Now, the economic dimension, because what is happening to energy markets right now is a slow-moving crisis that will hit every American family. U.S. crude oil soared around 9% to more than $88 per barrel, its highest price since October 2023. Brent, the international benchmark, rose around 6% to cross $90 per barrel, its highest since April 2024. U.S. gas prices hit $3.32 on average, up 34 cents in a single week. That is the biggest weekly jump in gas prices since March 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine. When reporters asked Trump about rising gas prices, he said, "That's all right. It'll be short term. It'll go way down very quickly." He also claimed prices were only up a little bit. The 8AA data says 34 cents in 1 week. That is not a little bit. And with 4 to 6 more weeks of war planned, the trajectory is not pointing down. Oil storage tanks are filling up across the region because exports have nearly halted. Analysts say there is a growing risk oil production will have to stop entirely. Shipping giant Maersk became the second major shipping company to suspend Middle East operations. The stock market opened Friday with the Dow down around 900 points, a nearly 2% drop. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ both fell around 1.5%. CSIS estimated the cost of the first 100 hours of Operation Epic Fury at $3.7 billion, about $891 million per day. Most of this cost, $3.5 billion, has not been budgeted for. No budget. No congressional authorization, and a price tag that is growing every single day. The UK has now fully entered this war, at least in a support role. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer granted permission for defensive U.S. action against Iranian missile sites, allowing the U.S. to use UK military bases. A U.S. B-1 Lancer, a 146-foot strategic bomber, arrived at RAF Fairford in Gloucestershire on Friday evening. This is the same RAF Fairford used to launch B-2 stealth bombers in previous Middle East operations. The presence of B-1 Lancers there is a significant escalation signal. Countries including Britain, France, and Spain have now agreed to provide military support to protect the interests of their allies. Iran's deputy foreign minister responded by warning that European nations will become legitimate targets for Iranian retaliation if they join the U.S.-Israel side. Russia's oil exports have seen a significant increase in demand as a result of the war. The Kremlin said the conflict has caused a significant increase in demand for Russian energy products one day after the U.S. gave India a 30-day sanctions waiver to keep buying energy. That last part deserves emphasis. The United States is fighting a war partly to stop Iran from threatening energy markets, and the primary beneficiary of that energy disruption is Russia, the country that is now helping Iran kill American soldiers. There is one more development that most coverage is burying, but which may be the most consequential thing that happened this week. U.S. intelligence reportedly suggests China may be preparing to provide Iran with financial assistance, spare parts, and missile components. China has not acted yet, but if Beijing moves from passive observation to active support, even financial support, the United States will face a choice it has been avoiding for years, confronting China directly over its role in a Middle East war while simultaneously fighting that war, while managing a domestic economy hit by oil shocks, while dealing with a Congress that never authorized this conflict. The Trump administration's upcoming visit to China, now scheduled for late March, was originally intended to focus on trade. One analyst at Tsinghua University said that now, probably Iran will be the #1 issue the whole world is waiting for the two leaders to say something about Iran. Trump goes to China in 3 weeks. The outcome of that meeting may determine whether this war stays contained in the Middle East or becomes something none of us want to name. Let me put this all together for day 8. Trump has drawn a line. Unconditional surrender or the bombs keep falling. He has called in defense industry executives to quadruple weapons production. A third aircraft carrier is reportedly heading to the region. This is not a campaign that is winding down. It is a campaign that is scaling up. Iran has drawn its own line. Its president says surrender is a dream America should take to its grave. Its armed forces have fired over 500 missiles and 2,000 drones in 8 days and say they are prepared to absorb months of strikes. Its foreign minister says a ground invasion is welcome. Russia is now actively helping Iran locate and kill American troops. China is watching and may enter financially. Oil is at $90 and climbing. Tehran's airport is on fire. 181 children are confirmed dead. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned this week that the war could spiral beyond anyone's control. That warning was issued before anyone knew Russia was feeding Iran targeting intelligence. We are 8 days in. The White House says 4 to 6 more weeks minimum. Every day that passes adds a new layer of complexity, a new actor, a new escalation that was unimaginable the day before. I will be here for every development as it breaks. If you are watching this for the first time, subscribe and hit the notification bell. This story is accelerating, not slowing. My job is to make sense of it for you every single day until it resolves. We are only on day 8.